I'm just sitting here thinking about the current farm bill that we're getting ready to take up and listening to the debate, and I came in a little bit late, and thinking about the issues that you've been talking about at hand. Can you tell me, and just reflecting back on the past, on the last farm bill that we had, I think it's always helpful for us to look at the good parts of the bill that we passed, maybe some challenges that were there, and some opportunities that we might have in the upcoming bill. But what are some things that you saw in the last farm bill that you might think we should definitely not do? Some things that were not helpful, or some issues that became a challenge to your various industries? Yeah, no one wants to answer that one.
Well, there are a couple of things that I think we have to take a look at. One thing that we've recommended is shifting the direct payments to the counter-cyclical payments. We have high corn prices right now. We have high wheat prices. We're higher. I learned a long time ago, never say they're high. They're never high enough to a farmer. But if it's tough to justify to Congress and anyone else paying a farmer when they got a high price. And conversely, when we all know prices don't stay high forever, and they will come down. And when they come down, having that safety net that really kicks in when you need it. And so we have suggested a shift in how you fund that, and base it on cost of production. And the reason we say cost of production, because if you're really talking about a safety net, the one gaping hole in the old last farm bill is every farmer got caught with rising input costs that went through the roof. Agriculture is very dependent upon energy, not just the fuel, but the fertilizer, even the equipment is very energy intensive to produce. And the safety net, when chosen by a price, whether it's a direct payment or a loan rate, doesn't move with that. And we were fortunate that last summer commodity prices went up because the rising input costs for farmers, because energy was really hurting them. You know, we can't pass on those costs. We're price takers, not price makers. And, you know, the old line is you buy retail, sell wholesale, and pay freight both ways. Well, we also pay a fuel surcharge both ways, and that's tough to pass on.
One that I raised with you that it's not something that the Congress has allowed, but is happening. We had back, and I'm going way back now. This is ancient history to all you all. But back in 1987, the Agriculture Committee was faced with a situation as far as rural development is concerned. We had no money. There was no money that was available. We had very tight budgets, and it was very difficult during that time. And one of the areas that got cut back substantially was in rural development. So the question is, what do you do about rural development? How do you help in rural development? And one of the ways that we did this is that we started, quite frankly, tasking some of the electric cooperatives to get involved in this, to help out in this, and finally developed a program, which is now known as the Red Leg program, in which electric cooperatives would, in fact, pay back their loans early. And that would go into a fund. And then the local electric cooperatives could make that available for local business loans to help small businesses, small industries come into those areas. And that's been a very productive program. Not a big program, it isn't massive, but it is a way in which we could achieve that, and that's kind of the backdoor way of trying to come up with the money to be able to do something out there. Well, what's happened here in the last couple of years is that the Department of Agriculture has started reaching into that fund and taking that money and using it for other purposes. Using it for other purposes. You know, over $200 million has been taken out of that fund and used for other purposes. And that's wrong. You know, and we're hopeful that the Congress will speak out on that and put a stop to that kind of practice, to allowing that sort of thing to happen. You know, but that's not something that the Farm Bill allowed last time. I guess this is another one of those things, and I know the frustration that each of you have is that Seems like folks always figure out some way to do something different than what we intended when we passed the legislation. You get that kind of frustration. If you leave any little inch there, there's always somebody going to figure out an angle to get after it. And this is one of those cases, and it's unfortunate.
Well, I keep going back to direct payments, and they're very important to us. One thing was that we were pretty much left out of the LDP program and countercyclical in the 2002. Our target price was set so low, and partially that was because we didn't want an oversupply. Storing grain doesn't create a free market, and when the target price gets too high, what happens is, and you drop, you get LDPs. A lot of times you're storing up grain to sell later, and we're of the mindset if we have moving our grain crop every year, it's going to create opportunity in the free market. With that being said, you start talking about a safety net. And if we want to talk about cost of production, a real direct payment for wheat growers that would be equal with our low target price right now would be $1.19 direct payment. For the cost of production, you can look, and that's exactly what we should have. Instead, we're getting 52 cents. So we're kind of left out in some of the Farm Bill. I think one thing that I'd urge you guys, all Congress, to do is to make sure wheat gets a fair shake this time, because wheat really was left out, a lot of it. We keep going back to the direct payment because it's something, again, that's bankable in rural America that counts. Yeah, you pay it every year, but when you're budgeting, you know what it's going to cost. It ain't going to be like a countercyclical or an LDP. It's going to be differing depending on market years. You can set a straight line that you can both budget and count on our end. And then the other last thing is full funding of the Conservation Security Program.